This news update is brought to you by...
So, I'm meeting Rico later. Gotta check in with the girls, but first, let me check my usage on the MyLime app. Now, what should I wear? Hashtag sexy. He's here.
It's Thursday, June the 4th, 2015, and this is your Barbados Today morning news update. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. We begin with news that the Barbadian fisherman who was missing at sea for 6 days before being found adrift off the Grenadines islands of Mustique and rescued by 2 Vincentian fishermen is not at all happy with his treatment by the authorities in that neighboring territory. Noel Armstrong arrived home by plane yesterday morning. He says he was treated as if he were a criminal. Armstrong told Barbados Today that the men called the Coast Guard for him, and then from there he went up to Mustique and spent 4 days there. Then immigration transferred him from there to St. Vincent, where he spent the rest of the time. The fisherman of 39 years said that in Mustique it was okay because the men treated him very good, but when he got to St. Vincent it was a different story. Read the full story in our e-paper. It is now unlikely that the planned changeover of the Customs and Excise Department to the Barbados Revenue Authority will be completed by July the 1st as proposed. Furthermore, 16 temporary customs guards who are currently stationed at the customs will not be absorbed into the umbrella Revenue Authority but will be deployed elsewhere in the civil service. The disclosures were made at the end of a 3-hour meeting between key government officials and the top brass of the National Union of Public Workers yesterday. Meanwhile, the fledgling Unity Workers Union is threatening to call out staff at the Psychiatric Hospital next week to protest what it deems to be intimidation of the union members at the lone mental institution on the island. UWU General Secretary Caswell Franklin issued the warning yesterday during an interview with Barbados Today. In correspondence sent on May the 29th to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of the Civil Service, Alison Fort, Franklin complained that previous correspondence dated August the 18th, 2014 and October the 20th, 2014, in which the union had highlighted the workers' plight, remained unanswered. Franklin also charged that the management of the Psychiatric Hospital had ignored the workers' concerns. However, in his letter last week, the unspoken trade unionists reminded management that it was still a criminal offense under the Section 40A of the Trade Union Act to dismiss or adversely affect the employment or alter the position of a worker because he is seeking to better his condition through a trade union. In sport now, the West Indies enter the second day of their cricket test series against Australia in Dominica this morning, with the visitors on 85 for 3, chasing the Windies' first innings total of a meager 148 all out. Australia therefore ended their opening day in a slightly stronger position, trailing only by 63 runs. After batting first, Windies survived only the 2 sessions for their 148 on a surface that had proven surprisingly challenging.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Secure your future, be financially strong. Since 1983, we have been there for you. A smart range of products, great tax benefits. We're the solution to your hopes and your dreams. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. Humble beginnings to smart loans, smart savings. Save smart and borrow smarter. That's the move for me. Stability, prosperity. We're the solution to your hopes and your dreams. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union. The Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union.
Welcome back with news from the region that the new Guyana administration is getting rid of political appointees in senior positions. A number of people have already been sent packing. More in this report from Capital News in Guyana.
Former Minister of Local Government Clinton Collymore was among the latest officials to be sent packing by the newly formed Ministry of Communities. Mr. Collymore, who stopped being a minister many years ago, was retained by the ministry, collecting $317,000 a month, one of the highest paid positions at the ministry. He was also afforded a gardener and a maid and was entitled to a vehicle with all transportation expenses paid for. It was unclear what work he actually did at the ministry. He was sent home on Monday. Also sent home Monday was the Regional Executive Officer of Region 9, Claire Singh. Like the REO in Region 8, Ronald Harsawak, she defied the Regional Democratic Council and carried out the mandate of the Ministry of Local Government instead. Sent home too recently was the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, Mr. Nigel Darmlal, who showed bias for the PPP while performing his functions of Permanent Secretary and acted in a hostile manner towards Amerindian leaders. In a meeting he had with Amerindian leaders last year, in which was caught on tape, Darmlal threatened to withhold stipends from Amerindian leaders and ban them from his office if they did not act on his demands.
In more regional news, Jamaica's opposition spokesman on national security, Derek Smith, says the temporary injunction which the government has secured from the Supreme Court, barring the police from taking industrial action, not only serves to intensify the escalating wage negotiation crisis, but brings what he calls the arrogance and bullying tactics being employed by the administration into sharp focus. Smith said the government's move to compel the police back to work by way of an injunction will not improve the deepening industry relations row and bring parties no closer to restoring normality. In fact, he says the injunction only serves to further provoke the police and intensify the antagonism that characterizes the relationship between the police and the government at this time. And finally, on the global front, the World Health Organization warned that the MERS outbreak in South Korea is likely to grow as the number of people under quarantine crept up to 1,369 yesterday, with 30 confirmed cases of the disease. So far, 2 people have died after contracting the respiratory virus in South Korea in the largest MERS outbreak outside Saudi Arabia. More than 540 schools have shut to prevent the spread of the virus.
With this news of the 2 deaths, they have stepped up the efforts to try to stop this from spreading any further. In the past week, we were talking about dozens of people quarantined, and now, as you mentioned, almost 700 have been quarantined. The president herself admitted that there were insufficiencies when it came to the initial response of health authorities, and now they are working hard, having emergency government meetings and set up a task force to do everything they can to stop the disease spreading any further. We also know that one of the people who ended up being diagnosed with MERS ended up leaving the country and is now in China. So, of course, fears of that spreading across borders, and there are suggestions from health officials that the government should do more to stop people who are currently under quarantine from leaving the country. Well, it seems that they didn't do enough. They admit they have apologized for this to stop the initial spread. This came from a man who had been traveling to the Middle East. He came back to Korea. He was feeling unwell, and later it became clear that he did have MERS. Now, most of the people who have since contracted the virus can be linked back directly to him. So the suggestion there is that not enough was done to contain that first patient and then to quarantine the other people who had come in contact with him. The fear now is that 2 of the latest cases out of the 25 are not linked to that first patient. They're actually linked to someone who contracted the virus from him.
And on that note, we end our Barbados Today morning news update. However, you can join us again this afternoon. Until then, remember to log on to www.barbadostoday.bb, subscribe to our e-paper and email updates, or like us on Facebook. You can also catch us on Izumi Media in bus terminals or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. Also tune into Channel 101 on Lime TV and Mix 96.9 FM. to get all the latest news and sports. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.
This news update is brought to you by...
So, I'm meeting Rico later. Gotta check in with the girls, but first, let me check my usage on the MyLime app. Now, what should I wear? #sexy.